Local 4 News begins right now with a breaking news alert.
Indeed, we continue to follow breaking news from Warren, where firefighters have rescued a driver after a semi-truck rolled right over onto his car. Topping our news here at 5, an army of firefighters and first responders spent more than an hour trying to get that driver out. This is I-696 near Mound Road.
Yeah, let's take a look again at the video from Sky 4 one more time. You can see the trailer completely crushed that Chevy Impala. Amazingly, though, the driver was pulled out and was moving as he was put on that stretcher. So let's get to Jason Colthorpe live in Warren tonight. Jason, you watched that rescue firsthand.
It was amazing, Kim, and that's really the only word I can use, and a lot of people using the same one. At 4 o'clock, we were kind of down on the road, giving you kind of a ground level of this. Now I want to give you a bird's eye view of just look at the track of this accident where it all happened, unfolded with this semi and a Chevy Impala. Now you're looking at where it came to rest. They've gotten the car out of there, but you're also looking at exactly what the load was that shifted on this driver that caused it to turn over. Those are metal or steel discs there that they're unloading there and throwing in that trailer. And all the people, since this happened, you can see people right here looking at this, hoping and praying as they just watched an horrific scene unfold.
We just heard a bunch of metal crunching.
That sound was a semi tipping over and crushing a Chevy Impala on the Mound Road exit from 696 East, and then sliding to a stop underneath the 11-mile road overpass.
The impact was, it shook our house, shook the ground, shook the fencing all the way down.
Somewhere the vehicle lost control, and it appears as though the load might have shifted, transferring the center of gravity, causing the truck to roll over onto the car that was in the lane next to it.
That's when the rescue began, as Warren firefighters worked frantically for almost an hour to free the driver trapped inside. People who live nearby were afraid of what the outcome would be given the scene. All right. But then,
that's the best ending to one of these stories I've ever seen.
I was amazed. I mean, by the look of the car, he should have been at least somewhat hurt. I'm not saying dead, but I mean, the way he came out waving at us when we were clapping, it was amazing. If you look at the car and the truck, it was completely amazing.
Yeah, a lot of people using that word. That driver was hurt but alert, and right now we're just hoping he's able to pull through at the hospital. Now, a lot of the people who live nearby say this happens all the time, and if you know this exit ramp, you know how tricky it is. It has 2 tight turns, one before this and then this one, as drivers who don't know it very well often have to jam on the brakes to try and get this under control. We don't know who's at fault yet. Police still investigating. They don't know if this was the semi-driver or if he was hit or cut off before all this happened, but we'll certainly be following this in the days to come. We're live in Warren tonight. Jason Colthorpe, Local 4.
And the road was closed for quite a while. Looks like it's still closed there, Jason. Any word on when it might reopen?
They're making progress, or initially they were thinking an hour. Yeah. That would be in a few minutes it would be open, but that semi still on its side. I would bet they're going to have a little bit more work to do to get that upright and out of here. So anybody thinking about it, I would bank on at least another hour, Kim.
Right, indeed. And again, a miraculous job by all those rescue workers to get that man out. Yeah. Jason, thank you. Our other top story tonight, Detroit police officers are holding a constant vigil right now at Beaumont Oakwood Hospital.
Exactly. That's where one of their own was taken after being shot in the back of the head last night in southwest Detroit. Here's what we know at this hour. Chief James Craig says the officer's condition deteriorated overnight, and the 14-year veteran of the force is going to need now more surgery. Let's bring in Rod Maloney, who's live with the newest information that we've learned on the suspect in this case. Rod?
Yes, Devin, we just got his picture just a few moments ago. Let's take a look at 46-year-old James Edward Ray. He is the person that Detroit police shot last night in that shootout in the apartment complex. He came out of that apartment complex door with his gun raised and apparently shot one of the police officers in the forehead. They returned fire, and we are learning still more about this James Edward Ray. And here's what we know. The original call came in as a domestic dispute, but the man in that left the building long before police arrived. As the officers tried to get into the building and knocked on the door, Detroit Police Chief James Craig said security cameras show Ray setting out to shoot whomever was there.
As he left his apartment building with a gun, he was actually chambering around in his weapon. It was a .380 nickel-plated pistol.
A later search of his apartment yielded another .45 handgun and a shotgun. Neighbors today couldn't figure out how Ray wound up in the middle of a fatal police shooting.
He was a good guy, just the alcohol. Drinking affects your soul, you know what I'm saying? And that's what messed him up.
I will tell you, it appeared that his gait leaving his apartment was somewhat unsteady.
Ray worked for the Hollingsworth Company, and it put out this statement this afternoon, quote, "We're saddened about the alleged involvement of a contract employee at our Romulus facility. This is a tragic situation, and our thoughts go out to the police officer, his family, and the Detroit Police Department. Many details are unknown at this time. We will work with the authorities as they continue their investigation," end quote.
If you think about the job our police officers are doing, it is not that there has been any pattern to this. It can be the most routine or the most dangerous of circumstances. They have to be prepared at all times.
Now, James Edward Ray was a contract employee, which means that he was employed by a temporary service and hired by the Hollingsworth Company. We want to be specific about that. As for the officer that is in the hospital here right now, clinging to life, he has had 2 surgeries already, one at 4 in the morning, one about 10 o'clock. And he, as we are told, has been deteriorating throughout the day, so there's considerable concern for him. And of course, the police and the mayor are asking for prayers for him and the entire police department. Back to you.
And Rod, I know you been talking to the neighbors around there about why this might have happened in the first place.
Well, you know, they have a theory, and it has to do with fear and the belief that perhaps it wasn't police at the door. But we'll have more on that coming up on Local 4 News at 6.
All right, Rod, we will see you then. So how are Detroit police officers handling this string of attacks? We've got more from Rod here at 6, as he just mentioned. But ahead here at 5:30, we're going to hear from Steve Doland, Detroit's former assistant chief, about the impact this has on morale and the toll that this very dangerous time has taken on officers. That's ahead at 5:30. All right, also breaking, we've got an intense manhunt that's underway right now in Dallas for a man who opened fire on a paramedic who was responding to an emergency call.
A civilian was also shot in all this. The gunman, still at large, is believed to have used a high-powered rifle. Dozens of police cars swarmed the area searching for the suspect. It's not clear if the paramedics were targeted. The wounded paramedic was rushed into surgery. He is reported to be in critical condition.
And also a busy day in Texas as we move down I-35. One person dead and several hurt after a stabbing at the University of Texas in Austin.
3 people hurt, have been taken to a hospital with potentially serious injuries. There are reports of additional patients with non-life-threatening injuries. Austin police say one person is in custody. Stick with Local 4 and click on Detroit.com for any new developments.
All right, we bring it back to Detroit, to a bombshell in court today. In the middle of his trial, Ike Smith, charged with a string of sexual assaults, brought the proceedings to an end by suddenly pleading guilty to all of the counts. For 4 days, accusers took the stand recounting in often gruesome detail what they say Ike Smith did to them.
And now it's all come to an end with Smith saying he's guilty. Let's get out to Steve Garagiola live. And Steve, you spoke to one of those accusers after the plea.
Yeah, you know, very brave women who stepped up to tell their stories in open court that led to this guilty plea today. I think it's important to emphasize this is not a plea deal from the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office. This is a straight-up guilty plea to all charges. So for the victims, this ends the ordeal of a long trial. Serial rapist Ike Smith faced at least 3 dozen charges in at least 5 different cities. One of the brave women he victimized talked with me afterwards today and explained what today's result gives her.
Hope that I'm going to be able to live again, that I'm going to become stronger, hope that the other victims are going to find healing.
Which comes with time. Often we casually speak of closure, as if this ordeal is over for the victims. In some ways, their journey toward wholeness is only just beginning.
He stole from me things that aren't tangible, things that you can't replace, you can't put your hands on, the things he took from me. Closure means it's over. This becomes part of you, and you have to grow through it, and you have to become a person who survived. And now because I survived, I am stronger. I can help other people.
She relived the ordeal in court and bravely shared her emotions today because in part she wants to reach out to other women facing the same challenge to reclaim their life.
This was not my fault, and it's not the fault of anyone who is a victim of that, but it's something that you struggle with. Like, so if I have the strength and I can do that, and that may give hope to somebody else, as a person, that's the least I can do.
Well, that takes a lot of courage, but she says she realizes there are many, many women out there who are facing the same ordeal, and she hopes this will help them find their strength. Sentencing set for May 25th. Of course, Ike Smith remains in custody. Back to you.
And Steve, you mentioned the sentencing. Any idea how much time he's facing?
Well, you know, that's actually an interesting question, because in pretrial, the prosecutor offered him a deal, a plea deal, 35 to 70 years to plead guilty to some lesser charges. He rejected that and said he'd go to trial. So now he pleads guilty. There were 9 cases bundled here, and he faces 14 to 21 years for each count of criminal sexual conduct. So we won't try to do the math here, but let's just say that adds up to a lot of years.
Yeah, he'll be there for a while. Okay, Steve, thanks.
Now to a Local 4 update this afternoon, as a Wayne State Sheriff's deputy appeared in court after being charged in connection with a deadly car crash. This is 36-year-old Matthew Doss. He is charged with reckless driving causing death after he hit a 56-year-old man. This was in October of last year. Today, though, Doss was in court for his arraignment. If he's convicted, he would face up to 15 years in prison. Police in one Michigan town putting out an alert after a very dangerous situation yesterday.
New tonight, what this man is accused of doing to 2 people that had them believing they were in big trouble with the law. Blaine?
On Capitol Hill today, lawmakers are juggling 2 major bills, but will they get the votes?
Rain is back in the winds. It picked up too. We're seeing wind gusts over 30 miles an hour in a couple spots, and the temperatures do not feel like May. More on that coming up.
20 workers say they were fired from a Macomb County plant after attending a Day Without Immigrants protest. What they say happened and how the employer is responding.
All right, Coco, and if you were just joining us, let's update you on the breaking news we've been following this afternoon in Warren. That's where firefighters have rescued a driver after a semi rolled onto his car. This was on I-696 right at Mound Road. That semi, in fact, still remains on its side. The eastbound 696 ramp to northbound Mound remains closed at this hour, but happy to say they were able to rescue the driver from what appeared to be a very pessimistic and desperate looking situation. We'll keep following it for you. Keep it right here on Local 4.
New at 6.
A husband and wife mauled by their son's pit bull. This is in an incident that first responders are calling one of the worst animal attacks they've ever seen. At 6, the weapon police had to use on the dog just so rescuers could pull one of the victims out of the home.
Plus, a terrifying moment for a local sheriff's deputy, almost hit head-on by a suspected drunk driver. New at 6, you'll see the short chase followed this near miss.
All right, now to protests across the country today, including here in Detroit, recognizing May Day.
May Day, also referred to as International Workers' Day, is a day of action to protest for workers' rights all around the world.
This is video from Sky 4 over Clark Park just a short time ago. And as that happened, a group of workers fired from a Chesterfield Township business filed a lawsuit saying they were let go for participating in a similar protest.
Yeah, let's get to Coco McAvoy live. Coco, how many people are we talking about part of this lawsuit here?
Kimberly and Devin, the case involves 20 Hispanic workers who say they went to a demonstration similar to the one that's happening in Southwest Detroit right now, and they say they were told that they would be suspended for 1 week, but instead they were fired. They believe it's discrimination, while the employer says if you don't show up for work and you have no reason, you're fired. This case stems from the A Day Without Immigrants protest on February 16th.
We are united!
All 20 employees either marched or didn't show up for work that day.
If I or another worker wanted to miss a day of work at Easy Industries for going to opening day or for St. Patrick's Day, I would just be able to not show up to work, or I would just be able to tell the employer, hey, I'm not coming in today.
But the client's attorney, Tony Paris, says the 20 employees were fired, and the employer also threatened to get immigration authorities involved.
And told a worker that, why did you do this? How are you able to afford an attorney? The employer has attorneys who, the employer's looking forward to fighting this case because they will be able to use immigration services that way.
Easy Industrial Solutions' response to that?
They were very clearly told before they did that
that they would be terminated.
Their attorney, Robert Boonen, says there was no discrimination involved and EZ had the right to fire the workers.
People may want to disagree as to what the appropriate punishment should have been, but they were certainly well within their legal right to do it.
The case has been filed with the National Labor Relations Board, which will determine how to proceed in this case. And the client's attorney says that this case is just one example of a number of labor disputes involving immigrants happening across the nation as we speak. Reporting live this afternoon, I'm Coco McAvoy, Local 4, back to you.
So, Coco, what has the labor board said so far, if anything? Have they been able to determine anything?
So as of right now, they haven't been able to determine anything, but I did speak with a member of the board, and they tell me that what they've been doing so far is they've interviewed a few of those workers. Some of those workers are undocumented, so they had to meet up with them in private locations, but they've also interviewed employees of that company, EZ, because they're trying to figure out what their protocol is when people normally call in sick or don't show up for work to determine if this was in fact discrimination in this case.
Yep. Okay, Coco, keep us posted. Thank you.
We bring in Ben, and we've had kind of a little bit of everything today. Started with rain, then we had some nice sun, it got warm, and now it's
windy.
All blowing in again. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? This is actually going to be our warmest day for the next 10.
It's May, come on.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
May 1st, can you believe it? And those high temperatures almost hit 70 degrees this afternoon. 68 is where we ended up in Metro. And now that the clouds have come back and the wind has picked up, 50 showing up, especially in our west zone where some of those showers have already started to get underway there in Livingston and Washtenaw County. 61 is the temperature that we've got right now at Metro Airport, but it is all going to be cooler as we go forward for the next 10 days. Looking back into April, since we closed the book on the month, look at this, 2017, second warmest April in Detroit history, and we only missed number one by 0.2 of a degree. 54.3 was the average temperature for the month. That's factoring in lows and highs together. That's why you see that number, but very close to seeing number one, which was 54.5. Plenty of showers on the west side of the state, and you can see they're in our west zone as we speak. Those are going to continue spreading across the area. This is mainly going to be in our west and north zones. Still going to see a couple sprinkles downtown. So if you're headed down to the Tigers game, keep that in mind. I don't think it's going to be enough to shut down the proceedings, but they will be seeing a couple of those hanging around. All this will continue to rotate through until about 10 o'clock tonight. That's when we'll see an end of the rain. Generally dry overnight, but then another round of rain coming through tomorrow morning. And once that exits about lunchtime, we get a bit of a break here midweek before we get another shot of rain that's going to be coming in here as we finish the work week, mainly on Friday, but some of those showers could be in here as soon as Thursday late. Temperatures tonight down to 46 degrees. The showers returning. It is going to be breezy. We'll keep those gusts between 30 and 40 miles an hour here for the next few hours. High temperatures tomorrow, we'll call it 52 in the metro zone, and these are going to be the warmest numbers. And one of the only spots that's going to see the 50s, 51 in the city, 52 by the airport, and probably down around Lake Erie, we'll see the low 50s too. And then you get on the west side of the zone, 48 in Tecumseh, 49 in Adrian, all 40s north of Michigan Avenue in our west zone tomorrow, from 46 in Flint, except maybe sneaking out of 50 down there in Canton. And on the cool side in our north zone, all 40s there too, 46 in Marlette, 46 also in Yale, and 48 in Richmond. Macomb, you'll be at 49 for high temperatures. High temperatures tomorrow. Get a little bit warmer Wednesday, but that 60 is as warm as we get for the next 7 days you see in the forecast, plus the other 3 that we've got on clickondetroit.com. Morning lows, 3 of those days are going to be in the 30s.
Yeah, hey there.
So, hope you didn't plant yet.
I might have. I might have a little something.
Said after Mother's Day.
I know. After Mother's Day. I know. I can't.
We'll see if we can make some changes.
Okay, work on that, Ben. Ahead in good health, encouraging news in the battle against the most deadly form of skin cancer. Plus, see why experts are asking women to play a bigger role in detecting melanoma before it spreads.
But first, another big hit for the Detroit school principals caught up in the bribery scandal. What the Attorney General is making sure they don't get. Next. 8 former Detroit Public Schools principals convicted of accepting bribes are also saying goodbye to part of their pensions. The Attorney General, Bill Schuette, announced today the state will no longer pay pension contributions to the principals. It also means those who owe repayments will see their pensions reduced until full repayment is made. All 8 principals were convicted last year in a kickback scheme that totaled nearly $3 million. All right, across Michigan, following stories from all the way up in Mackinac Island and Three Rivers.
Yeah, but we want to start in Sparta Township. That's where police are searching for a man suspected of impersonating a police officer. Authorities say the man tried to arrest 2 people Sunday, telling the victims he was an officer. Police say the suspect was not carrying a weapon and did not hurt anyone. At this point, they don't know the man's identity. Take a good look there. An investigation is still underway. In Three Rivers, 2 people are facing charges for running a meth lab out of a van.
Yeah, police say they had been watching the van for days as part of an ongoing investigation. And on Friday, they finally approached the van and found an active meth lab, a number of bags of meth and marijuana as well. The 39-year-old driver and 34-year-old passenger were both arrested. Up on Mackinac Island, the famous Grand Hotel front porch has finally finished a big remodel job.
Anybody who's been up there to Mackinac Island has seen the 660-foot porch. It's the longest porch in the world and one of Mackinac's most well-known structures. Well, today, after nearly a year of remodeling, the porch has returned to its original wood, has a fresh coat of paint, and is now slip-proof for the winter. And despite the remodeling, the hotel's historian says the porch hasn't lost its classic look.
New at 5:30.
I know you can't tell by looking at it anymore, but this used to be the Detroit Animal Shelter here on the southwest side. Well, now it has come down, and there are big plans here. In fact, $5 million worth.
When a police officer gets shot, the emotional pain of it hits home for every cop on the force.
It's not supposed to happen. You're supposed to go home at night. When you tell your wife and your kids, see you in the morning, that's what you expect.
Former Assistant Chief Steve Dolan will help us understand just a little bit what every Detroit cop is going through today.
A father goes from one son's funeral to his other son's arraignment. The latest on a deadly fire and how one family is in total turmoil.